Today I'm going to be talking about a different team in the world of the footballing landscape, and that is Liam Rosenier's Strasbourg. I don't know why I put the accent on. That's, if anything, probably come off very offensive. I was just trying to be a bit playful. My bad. This video started off poorly. I'll carry on with it. Surprising everyone in Ligue 1 by rising up the table, battling for European places, with a manager that, I can only assume to French football fans is a complete unknown. We know him in England as his time as a player, but managerially had a stint at Hull, where Hull fans remember him fondly, but was sacked because of, I believe, disagreements with the club's owners on style of football, which is laughable, really, when I speak about this Strasbourg team in detail. So he's come into France, taken over from Patrick Vieira, and has performed excellently with, it has to be said, an extremely young team. I can't remember the average age off the top of my hand, but you look through the squad list and ages are about 20, 21, 23, 25. They have a partnership with Chelsea, so there's players on loan and players that they've done business with from there. Also players in this team representing the youth of France, a couple of African countries, just a lot of places where they've really scouted well and have signed players that, well, loan players will obviously have to go back to their parent club, but other players which they may profit off of massively. I'm looking at players like Diego Moreira. I'm looking at places like Ameja. There's a lot of quality, and the thing I think I love most about Liam Rosenior is, he looks like the geekiest manager I think I've ever seen in my entire life. There's something really nervous about the way he almost looks a bit Miles Morales. Holy crap, he's Spider-Man. I figured it out. There's no limit to this man's talents. Managerially, he's saving Strasbourg. I was going to say Paris. That not everywhere in France is Paris. He is Miles Morales Rosenior. That's anyway. I'm supposed to be talking about tactical analysis. I'm going to go on to the attacking shape now of this team and discuss that in a bit more detail. So the technical level of this Strasbourg team is very, very high. They're very composed. They want to play football on the ground. They want to play passes under pressure, and they approach the game in a beautiful way. And it's in all phases. So if the team's pressing them high, as you can see is represented here, they will use what is pretty much their staple shape, which is a 3-2-5 of sorts. It's worth pointing out before I go on, the main game I'm using as a reference point for this is their 4-2 win over Lyon, which took place about a week or two ago. I've watched other bits and bobs, but that was the game I truly sat down to analyse. So that's going to be most of my reference points. But they're a fairly fluid team. Their shapes can shift and alter depending on opposition, depending on players they have available. He's got a very good understanding of the profiles in his team, Rosenior, with that. But this is the main reference point, just for the sake of it. And as I said, 3-2-5 of sorts. Moreira pushing very high from left back to form the left wing position, with Nanazi moving inside. Lamarichel as the right attacking midfielder, Bakwa as the right winger. Dewey as a more conventional right back as sorts, which enhances the level of this team in other ways, which I'll talk about in a second. Barco, who's on loan from Brighton, and Andre Santos on loan from Chelsea as the two pivots in this team. And ultimately, they will look to hold on to the ball under pressure and try and play through in these areas to those two double pivots, trying to create angles. You can also get Lamarichel dropping in to offer a 3, maybe tracking the 6 with him as well to again, try and overload those central areas to play through. But what they do have, and this is an important staple for every team that builds up, I think it's been my main criticism of Southampton in the Premier League, building up and having a philosophy to play short and play through the thirds cleanly is fine. It's beautiful. It's what every team wants to do. You have to have a direct option to be able to hit, to be able to play through and get out of trouble, because there will be points where you need that option. There will be points where you need a transitional threat to exploit an opposition's shape. And let's just say if in these areas they're struggling to play through, they're struggling to play out, Petrovic gets involved as well, using his ability to play out to create a +1. But again, maybe he'll start getting pressed by the 10, maybe the 5 will engage as well, maybe the opposing players will react and try and close down lanes. So he may just need to go long, maybe one of these two defenders and Sara Decore will have to go long. And Ameja produces that option brilliantly. He's got a great frame to him, an awkward frame as well. He's not built, but he's gangly and he's physical enough that he runs the channels and holds onto the ball well. He can keep defenders back to him as he tries to gain control of the ball. A little technically unpolished. He's not the cleanest, but He's got pace and strength and physicality galore for these options to run the channel, get control of the ball, and buy precious seconds to allow maybe the overlapping run of Moreira, the supporting run of Nanazi, Bakwa, Barco and Lamarichel to get forward. Even not just to get out of jail free card from those deeper areas. His movement when players do get a bit of freedom and a bit of time to turn on the ball. And Barco, who's a player I'll be speaking about in detail, if he was to receive the ball from his keeper, be able to get it on the turn and play forward into this area, and Maha's movement creates brilliant opportunities for himself and angles for players from deep to pass to, so he can get in on goal and stick it in the back of the net, which he did in the Lyon game, and it was a fantastic move that resulted from that exact scenario. So they do both things really well, but Santos and Barco as the pivots do a really good job as well. There's a lot of composure and just a lot of clever game planning from this team, and that comes from belief as well from Rosenior. Tactically it's superb, but you also have to give players confidence, and maybe that's a plus of having such young players in the team, is they're a little bit fearless, and that can cost you, of course it can, but I think the positives outweigh the negatives. But I'll just discuss this shape because it does alter a little bit more if a team drops off. So when a team drops off into a middle-low block, Strasbourg are fine holding on to the ball in these deeper areas. Petrovic will leave the box, make it a back four as the rest of the defenders spread out as you would. Doué can play in his more orthodox right-back position. Decore can move out into a left centre-back role, and they can recycle it along here, trying to find openings within that shape. There'll be movement, there'll be fluidity from that central forward to try and create those angles. You know, maybe one of them coming a bit deeper, Santos or Barco make a movement outside the front two to try and get it on the half turn and play forward and progress the play. But again, if not, can play it back to those deeper players and start again. Ameha can also present an option from these areas to find gaps maybe in between the two central midfielders so they split a bit to receive the pass from deep. Again, as I was speaking about before, a little technically unpolished, but there's enough players in close proximity that he can find them with a quick pass, and ultimately if they can play through that defensive shape cleanly, then they'll get it to one of these players in the wide tens who can look to find the overlapping run of the likes of Moreira, of the likes of Bakwa, who can create opportunities from their positions very cleanly. They'll have a flat cross in the box. It's becoming a bit of a norm, not just across the 6 yard, but pullbacks into the penalty spot, which we've seen players like Andre Santos benefit of. He's a 6 who scored a good number of goals for the position he plays in by getting on the end of those pullbacks, using those movements, having the freedom to be able to attack the box when needed and get into those situations. Also, the positional play and fluidity, especially on that left-hand side with Barco and Moreira. Sometimes you can find Barco in these more advanced areas, and him and Moreira have a really good understanding. Barco can find himself on the outside, Moreira on the in, and they can link up to good effect. Barco may be driving into the centre, Moreira can make an overlap and run on the outside, who could then find him and overload the fullback, or vice versa. And as I say, there's a really good understanding between those pair. They're both left-backs by trade. I believe Barco was a left-back when he came to England. We obviously didn't get to see it much, but there's a really good understanding and synergy between those two when they play. The role that Barco plays in these situations, however, is excellent, and it comes from the way they build up. So the way that you're more likely to get space in these types of shapes is through the wide area. So let's say if Decore gets on the ball here, Moreira can drop in a little bit deeper to receive the ball from deep, maybe drags the fullback with him, and then Nanazi can make this movement into the space created between centre-back and fullback. Doesn't have to receive the ball, but that space then maybe drags the centre-back with him, it maybe drags the holding midfielder into that space to try and collect it, it pushes that defensive line back, and Barco's movement into these positions is excellent. He's always alert, he's always keeping tabs on the phase of play that creates that movement to jump in and receive it here in now a lot more space. It still retains the structure of having those two attacking midfielders with a defensive line that's now more occupied, and it can happen on the right hand side as well if it's Lamarichel making that movement in the half space, and he can then use these opportunities to create for himself, to find those movements from the likes of Ameha, from the likes of Nanazi, to play it to Lamarichel, who can recycle it to Bakwa, or maybe even find a direct pass to Bakwa himself, or down the line to Moreira. His technical quality is superb in this central zone. His movement to get into space, and also his dribbling ability. If he's being pressed, if a player reacts to him well, he holds onto the ball and takes a player out of the game, which then creates more space for a fellow attacking player to make a movement. And he has been inspired for Strasbourg. He's a truly, truly exceptional player. One I didn't see enough of when he was at Brighton to really understand his qualities, and from what I gather, his loan spell at Sevilla didn't go exactly to plan. you're seeing it now, and he's being given the license, he's been given the freedom to show his qualities, and that's the exceptional thing about the Strasbourg team. And also, as the play moves forward and the defensive line start pushing the opposing midfield and defensive shape back, then you'll see the back three, as Petrovic obviously won't start playing that high up the pitch. Santos can move in as well, offering a more deeper defensive option in these sections to again help progress and help create a wider base from which Strasbourg can play out. Barco can stay in as the double pivot, or he can move into this left-hand side attacking midfield position, where he then creates a diamond shape, as Nanazi can move inside as Lamarichel in the right centre midfield position, Barco maintaining the width. And as I've spoken about before, the diamond is a growing trend within football again. The way that Strasbourg go in between a box and a diamond, it's very fluid, and it just adds to that level of creativity and fluidity that they can use to play through. Barco again producing massively from the positions he finds himself in these areas, especially as, say, the player on this side, the winger, gets drawn into Decore. He will then use this ability to overload the fullback and link up with Moreira, as said, and they can use their partnership to great effect, even more from these situations. Again, depending on players you have available, depending on opposition threat, the diamond and the box can interchange as and when it needs to. And also where you have the added quality of Barco, because Lamarichel will stick more central on the right-hand side, you get more support on the right-hand side from the right centre-back. Decore won't look to overlap, he's a centre-back by trade. Doué, being a right-back by trade, offers that underlapping or overlapping run for Barca. He'll look to attack his fullback and rely on that overlapping run of Doué, or underlapping depending on the positioning. Also, Barca's positioning can drag a fullback inside if then Doué gets on the ball and decides to drive deep into the half. Again, overloading certain areas. Lamarichel can look for the ball and play forward. All this contributing to that wide overload that can help create the perfect crossing opportunity for Ameja, who can get on the end of a ball and put it in the back of the net and get the goals that Strasbourg have been known for. But it's beautiful football. It's football in the way I believe it should be played, and it's full credit to what Liam Rosenior has built here with young players that, as I say, just display their fearlessness, and it's resulted in some really stunning goals to watch and some lovely little dance routines. And if this was an English team, and let's say you get about half an hour for punditry at the end of a game, when you take away adverts and interviews and all that, and it's pundits discussing, they would spend, I would say, about 20 minutes of that half an hour discussing the dances they do after the goals and all those little celebrations. I mean, they go through about 6 different routines in one celebration. It's crazy. And that would be viewed as unprofessional, and that would be viewed as silly. I like it. I think it displays just... football's fun, innit? Like, football should be fun. You should see players enjoying themselves. And when you're seeing young players express themselves in that, and they're having a bit of fun with it and creating good football and performing really well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong? Liam Rosenior joins in as well. He's one of the lads. He's fun. He feels like the popular kid. He doesn't have to put on the mask to all of a sudden get respect from people. I don't know. It's a weird little point, but I just feel like there's something very un-English about watching him, and I don't think you'd be able to see this in England because of the scrutiny, I think. And obviously, I don't know what French media is like. I'm not going to pretend to. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just being a bit soft here, but whatever. We'll go on to the defensive phase now. When Strasbourg press, they press high, man-to-man, aggressively, using the youth to their advantage. It's incredible with the energy levels. So let's just say if the goalkeeper plays the pass to the centre-back, Ameja will then go to press. Bakwa will come in around, so will Lamarichel, so will Santos, so will Nanazi, and they'll try and trap him in. And you also get the wide centre-backs coming in as well to offer support, so Decore will press onto the 9. Doué will come into the 11. You'll get Barco pushing up onto this player here. Even more aggressively, you'll maybe see Nanazi stay onto the number 2. You'll have Santos pushing higher, Lamarichel pushing higher, and Sarr will then jump onto the 8. So it's man-to-man all over the pitch to try and win that ball back as quickly as possible. Again, youthful, there's tenacity, not so much physicality, just because some of these players are a little bit undeveloped, but you can't fault the effort and you can't fault the energy, and it will be high and man-to-man, even to the point, let's say, if the fullbacks drop in a little bit deeper and the wingers end up a lot deeper into their own half than maybe they'd even like to, Doué and Moreira can get pulled in really well, and this can leave Decore as the sole centre-back at this point. And he'll have to watch that, and obviously he'll have to be wary of the movements from the 9 around him, because there will be a massive amount of space for him to defend. Petrovic is a keeper as well that will engage off of his line and sweep up in behind, which is so important to a team that presses high. I can't even begin to describe. Having a player who reads situations reads loose balls, is in a good starting position, has the athleticism and the spring in his step to get off his line, is beyond essential to making this work. And Petrovic does a really good job of that, to be fair. And again, Decore can become exposed, as we've spoken about tons of times on this channel. High pressing teams can get exposed if one person just loses their marker, if they switch off for a second. All of a sudden, one player's getting overloaded and he has to make a decision. That is just the nature of high pressing teams. But if everyone does their job, it gets pulled off, and there is the fail-safe of Petrovic. And at least if a player does lose their marker, as spoken about before with the youthful energy, they can recover. They can use that burst of pace and athleticism to get back in and cover the player they were supposed to be marking, pushing them further away from goal, if nothing else. So that is key. And obviously, presses can be broken, and Strasbourg drop in. I'll just quickly assemble that now. Strasbourg don't drop off into their own half as such. They just won't press as high. They still maintain a very high defensive line. And Barco already spoke about having, about 2 or 3 jobs to do in an attacking sense. In the defensive shape, he drops into a left centre-back position, making it a back 5. As we saw before, they press in a 5-4-1 and they defend in a 5-4-1. And it just goes to show how incredible this player is. Just to be able to pull off so many roles at such a young age, to have a really good tactical understanding of what the manager wants. It's good from manager, it's good from player, and it's really good to see. They will look to engage with the wide centre-backs as well, so you can sometimes get maybe the number 5 here attracting Ameha towards him to press him. Santos can maybe get pulled into the 4 if he's the presenting option. The number 10 can then drop in, and Barco's got to be ready to engage. And as well, it's not just that simple movement or that type scenario. If the number 6 receives it and Ameha's too far away to press, Lamarchel's got to be ready to press the player in his zone, as does Barqua, as does Nanazi. If it's going to the fullbacks, they have to be ready to engage players in their zone, and the defenders in these situations have to be ready to then maybe press into the space, because what that does when the centre midfielder gets dragged out, it creates the opportunity for the 8 to drop in. Sar's got to be ready, and so on and so forth. The players in their zones have to be ready, and the issue that comes from this, from a Strasbourg point of view, is this can be baited. So let's say if Sar gets pulled into this area here, this then creates a split-second opportunity for the 11 or the winger on the far side to make a movement into this position behind Dewey. Dewey has got to be able to read that, he's got to be able to sense it when it's coming, and he's got to be wary of not just tucking in when Sar goes to press, but also watching the run-in behind him. It's a hard position to have to deal with, and one I wouldn't like to do. I mean, to be fair, I probably would, because it meant I would be a professional footballer, but you know what I mean. And again, they can get caught because the mental side of a young player generally isn't as developed as someone who's in their late 20s, early 30s. But, as spoken about before, energy, athleticism, they can recover. So even if that 11 gains a few yards on Dewey, he's got enough pace, he's got enough agility to quickly get back in and do his best to win the ball and prevent it from becoming a dangerous attacking opportunity. They concede goals, Strasbourg. I'm not going to pretend any different, but they're calculated risks, and I like it. I like the way they approach it. For me, football is supposed to be played with fun and a bit of risk. And that is football for me. Fun, risk, excitement, a bit of unpredictability, and goals. That's what we want from football, surely. That's something everyone can agree on. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Any Strasbourg fans, tell me what you think about this team. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I'll see you next time, lads. In a bit.